What does it matter if you unlock the secrets of the universe if you are unhappy? You know, if you can facilitate happiness and become a happier person, all these other things kind of open up. After that presentation, people coming up to me, talking to me about how impactful it was.
Welcome to another edition of the Journey to Freedom podcast. And just we are now in 2025. Leighton, can you believe we're in 2025? Can you believe that our lives and the lives that we lived have been around? I was just talking to somebody about Y2K the other day, and there's a whole lot. Literally, I was talking to somebody who was born in like 2022 or something or not 2020, 2002. Yeah. And they had no clue what we were even talking about. And this is an adult, right? It's not like, like I'm talking about somebody in the 2000s. I have 8 children, and my 8 children were all born, one of them was born, 2 of them were born in the 80s, and the rest were born in the 90s. So they're all not even that young, I got grandkids that are all born in, the 20s. But I'm just like, where did time go? Where did our ability to just, think about stuff like, is the world was going to end because we didn't have computers that could handle changing the date from 1999 to 2000. And we all thought the world was going to end. If you guys remember the pandemic, when we all believed that we were all going to die from this disease that was going, well, that's what happened in Y2K. But man, I'm so glad that we're alive. I'm so glad that we've been able to. I was thinking about what we learned about was the Roaring Twenties. That was like something we learned about in school, and now we're back to, I don't know if we're going to call it the Roaring Twenties again, but we're halfway through the 20s. Amazing. Of the things that are there. My dad just turned 86 on Monday. And so, they have some of his stories and the things that he's talking about. And I have a friend whose dad's 97. Wow. And you just think about how time flies. And so, and last year was kind of cool because last year we were able to interview 100 Black men. That was I set out to do. And I was going to, hey, I want to see if success leaves clues, what are the clues that we're leaving? And and we got to 105. And I said, should I be done? And I don't want to be done because these stories have been so good, and the people that I get to talk to have been so inspirational. And I'm here in Denver, Colorado, and so you're in Florida, and you're on the the East Coast. And I found out that 65% of the United States population lives in the Eastern time zone. So, and then 15 live in Central time zone, 15 live in the Western time zone, and I'm in Denver. There's only 5% of our whole population, but there's states like Wyoming and Montana. Nobody lives in Montana, right? Nobody lives there. Utah, New Mexico, Colorado. Yeah, so we're just not hardly any people. But just thinking of all the things that I've been able to learn from, and I would say most of my interviews have been from the East Coast and been in the East Coast and what they've done. And then a lot of folks from California. And it's just been, you're in the South now, but you were in New York for a while. But so I had this, I got to go to Alabama last year. I'm going to take a group of Black men there at the end of this month and kind of understand the South. I literally had never been. I've been to Florida a few times and Disney World and that kind of stuff that really didn't seem like the South. I wasn't like stuck in Jacksonville for more than a couple minutes or something, and you're down in Fort Lauderdale. But when I'm in Alabama, it's a different planet. It's not even like going to Europe or anything like that. And I don't know if you've been to like Birmingham and Selma and Montgomery and, where the slave trade was just so huge. And then, understanding I kind of feel like I went back in time, when I went there last year where, some of the laws from the 70s are still there. A minimum wage is still $7.20. I asked a waiter that was waiting on us, like, how much does he make an hour? He said $2.20 an hour. I'm like, in 2024? Like, how do you live in $2.20 an hour? That's like you work, 40-hour week and you haven't even made $100.
It's wild. That's crazy.
It is so crazy. So with that, it's just been exciting, and today is no difference. And I get to talk to Leighton today, which is cool because if you notice, he has a shirt on that says the happiness equation. So I'm planning on, my goal is, or I don't know if it's my goal, my expectation is this is going to be the happiest podcast that we've ever done. We are going to have some fun doing it. And we kind of talked about, we call it the green room, like this just us having a conversation before we go online. And he said he's now on his second book. And I can kind of feel, because his is coming out in a few weeks. My second book's coming out in a few weeks. But his is going to be way more happier than mine. Because my first book was about, it's called There Is No Tiger. So when a tiger's trying to get you, there's nothing that, there's no happiness there. It's about overcoming overthinking and controlling anxiety, which are not too happy moments for most of us when we're overthinking all the time. Although if you get through it, then you're super happy. And then my next book is the one that just did. It's called The Decision Formula, five easy steps to making decisions that'll change your life. But I'm a little more excited about yours today, and and finding out what you have. And so what, like I do with all our guests, is I start out asking their story, where they came from, what they do. And I think you're going to enjoy this one. I just got a glimpse of it, but I think you're going to enjoy the story that he has for us. And then we'll chop it up with a whole bunch of fun questions and learn about his book. And I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to be happy, right? All right. So you go ahead, and Leighton, just go ahead and talk to us. Tell us about who you are.
Yeah. So I was born in Jamaica. My family is Jamaican, and my parents immigrated to the United States when I was 3 months old. So we, like a lot of Jamaicans, the first stop is New York. So we lived in New York for essentially the first 6 years of my life, and then after that, my family moved down to Broward County, Florida, which is where I am right now. Very interesting time growing up. I guess everyone's got a story of, the things that were formidable in their life, and I do as well. One of the things that happened is when I was about 13, my parents divorced, and there was I have 5 other siblings, so there's 6 of us. And my father, after the divorce, he kind of stuck around for like a couple months, but then after that, it was basically, I think, maybe 25 years since I saw him for the second time. So that was clearly like a formidable thing, having to, grow up in a single parent household run by a single mother, doing the best that she can. She has 4 sons and 2 daughters. Pretty wild time. But we survived by the grace of God and a lot of help and support from our family and community and so on. So we were pretty much required to take care of ourselves at minimum. And then if you can also contribute, that was helpful. So one of the things that happened in my family was, like, basically at 18, you needed to be gone and on your own and taking care of yourself, because it was just a lot for my mom to handle. Although after a while, she went from kind of like a more entry level worker to really progressing in her career, and kind of like the tail end of the 6 children. Like with each passing year, things got financially better, but I was second oldest, so I didn't have it the worst, but it was still pretty rough at times. So at 18, actually at 17, I left the house to go to college. I went to University of Florida in Gainesville. It's about 4 hours north of here. Majored in finance, minored in economics. One of the most impactful things that happened to me while I was in college is I worked for a company called Southwestern. And this company, what they basically do is they take college students from around the country, and they give them a sales position, which is basically selling books door to door in an area that you're not from. So I did the program for 4 summers, and I was in Lubbock, Texas, 1 summer, Middletown, Ohio, St. Joseph, Missouri, and someplace in Minnesota. but I forget the name. It was a really small town. So I really got away from everything that was comfortable and that was known to me, and really kind of got out there in the world. I experienced the best of people. I experienced the worst of people, because I literally was working in towns that were, extremely small. Some no stoplights, some really small towns at times, and I met amazing, wonderful people there, and I also had my share of pretty not good experiences. But that whole progress of, I think, that whole experience of like really being out there in the world, and in an unfiltered, unprotected sense, it really gave me a chance to kind of see, first of all, what I was made of, and then second of all, to kind of find out, like, what is the world like when there is no quote unquote safety net, behind you or beneath you. At the same time, I have my faith in God, so I always felt that he was there. So I never truly felt alone, and I did have my family support, although they couldn't financially help me. It was, if I needed a shoulder to cry on, I'd have that, but that was about the extent of it. But I did extremely well in the program. My last summer in the program, in the 3 months, I made about $40,000 selling books door to door. Yeah.
Those good books.
They were really good books, but there's a system. This company's been around for over 100 years. It's probably pushing 150 years now. And they started out by selling Bibles during the Civil War. That's how they started out. But they transitioned to like an educational publishing company. So they just sold educational homework manuals and other types of books. And I just had been doing it for a while, kind of figured it out, and through a lot of coaching and other things. But it was an extremely formidable experience. And one of the reasons I did it, for many reasons, I needed to pay for college, so it helped me do that. I needed to get a good job after college because I knew I couldn't be a burden on my family. I needed to help my family. And I guess, since we're telling a story, the program is extremely hard. First summer is challenging, but you don't know what you're getting into. So you're just kind of like out there listening to what people are telling you. The second summer is really hard because you know what you're getting into, and you know all of the things that you're going to face, and it can be really, really challenging. So in my second summer, I already had school paid for at that point. Everything was kind of lined up, and I knew that I could not quit, because for this program, the worst thing you can do is quit. Like, you don't want to quit, regardless of how hard it is. You need to stay out there and do the best you can. And I was just really lacking motivation because I didn't need the money anymore. And it's like, why am I going to go and suffer this abuse from people? Like, all my friends are back home having the summer of their lives, and I'm out here like really almost torturing myself to some degree. So I was like, I need to find something that will motivate me to go out there. So I called my mom. I said, Mom, I want you to go start shopping for a house, because when I get back home, I'm going to give you $10,000 for a down payment. Wow. And at that time, I had I had money for school paid, but I didn't have $10,000. But the thing is that my mom kind of knows me, and she knew how my first summer went, and she knows kind of how I am. So she knew it was going to happen. And I told her, send me pictures. Like, I want to know, like, I need to be motivated so that I can do this hard thing that I got to do. So she did. I went out there. I had an amazing summer. I came back home. I wrote her a check for $10,000. She bought her very first house. And that was like a pretty great experience that I was able to give her, like, because of my working in that program. So graduated from college, and because I had really good sales experience, one of the selling points of this program is that you do what we ask you, you work hard, and you're pretty much going to be guaranteed the best jobs out of college. And that's kind of what happened. I ended up working for, I got a job right out of college working for Morgan Stanley. I was an advisor, and with them for 4 years. I liked it. Kind of, the industry wasn't really aligned with like kind of how I wanted to, my life to set up, because your emotions are kind of tied to the market. So when the market's great, you and your clients are on cloud nine. when the market is like the worst ever and we're on the brink of COVID or Y2K or all the calamities that happen, then it's like you're emotionally just on this roller coaster. So, and other reasons as well too. But I decided to get out of financial advising and I went to work for a commercial insurance company. And I did that for about 8 years. And then about 13 years ago, I started my own commercial insurance agency, and that's what I do now. So we moved back home in Broward County, Florida. I started my agency, been in business 13 years, ups and downs, crazy times, great times, but we're still here, still kicking, still helping people. And it's been quite the journey. So the book kind of comes into play just because I've been around. I've also seen all 7 wonders of the world with my brother, and I've done kind of a lot of kind of crazy things, interesting things, and I've kind of learned a lot along the way. And we can get into kind of the origin story of the book, but kind of all these different experiences that I had, when I put them all together, a lot of the information that comes out of that is in the book comes from different things in my life. And so here I am now. I am married. I have a father of 4 children, so half as many as you. That's quite amazing. And yeah, so that's where we're at.
Pretty much after 4, it's the same. You might as well have 4 because it's just you looking at some kid at some point, and they start helping you take care of them. Oh my gosh! Thank you for sharing. I mean, there's so much to unpack in your life about clues of success and clues of happiness, and so I'm going to go through a series of questions to ask you, but wanted to make a couple comments. One. I did a goal setting workshop. I don't know if you know, but I did a goal setting workshop 2 days ago where I'm working with people talking about if you focus on your goals, you're probably going to struggle if that's all you focus on, right? We got to focus on the activities. You got to focus on the outcomes. You got to focus on. But one of the things that I suggested in there is when you make some of your goals, if you truly want to hit them, they can't all be about you. They have to be about somebody else. They have to be about serving somebody else and serving others. And then 2 days later, I get a story from you that says, I bought my mom a house because that was my goal that I set for this summer, and it became very successful at it. But what even goes further than that I think is so cool is, one of the other things that we say, the most successful people in the world are the people who've got the most no's. That somebody had failed the most before they can move forward, right? So you go into an industry, not only do you do it for 1 year, but you do it for 4 years. And you know that it's not fun. You're going to get a tremendous amount of no's, that not everybody's going to like you. You're going to be out. You told me you were in Lubbock, Texas at one point. So I know if you were there and it was a summer job. So it wasn't like, oh, this is a cool 75 summer day in Florida. This is, I'm about to melt my everything away. And you went through that for a short amount of time. And now you get to have this incredible life as a result of 2 of those skills that you got. One being I'm willing to take no's in the sales process and understanding that real well, which has served you tremendously, I'm sure, throughout the rest of your life. And the other one is willing to make goals that serve another human being instead of, I want my Lamborghini, or I want my house, or I want my, my rocket ship to the moon. And I'm not saying there's anything bad about having goals that are specific to what you want out of life. But all that other stuff happens if you're willing to serve others. It's just so amazing that we unpack it. And so maybe you can kind of share, some of those things. I'm sure that goes into your origin story of your book and your happiness and but that service and that willingness to do things that are unpleasant sometimes in order to have this amazing life. Can you just kind of share with the evolution of that for?
Yeah, sure. So in the book, there are 7 questions that you answer, and your responses go into an equation that I created that give you a happiness score on a 0 to 100 point scale. But one of the questions tie into what you're talking about right now, and that is, on an A+ to F scale, what value do you bring to the groups that you belong to? And so I think now, when I did that thing for my mom, and truth be told, I have never repaid her and can't repay her for what she's done to me. So there's a dollar figure tied to this story, but what she's done for me has been priceless, of course. But the point is like, we belong to groups, and a lot of times people think that happiness is something that passively happens to them, or if someone is happy, it's because they are just lucky. Now, granted, I will concede some people just have a brain chemistry that allows them to just be more happy than other people that may suffer with depression and so those kinds of things. But taking depression off the table for a second, a life of happiness is something that you can build for yourself, and that requires a lot of hard work. I mean, the story that I told you about selling books, and I have we could do probably 10 podcasts on crazy things that happened to me selling books, but it's one of the hardest things I've ever done in life, but it has brought me so much joy when I think back of the things that I've did, the people that I did it with, the stories that we were able to have together. Yeah, you talk about raising a family. Selling books is hard. Raising a family is harder. There's a lot of things that I've done in my life that were infinitely harder than selling books. And at the same time, the ones that are positive have been, the return that I've gotten from them has been priceless. But in terms of the question that we were on about value, it's not enough to say, well, I'm going to meet this need for me belonging in a community setting by finding a community and then being in it. That's not enough. That's the first step, is you need to find a community. That could be your family. It could be a church group. It could be a work group. It could just be a social group. It could be any group of people that you jive with. You guys are working together to accomplish something in some manner. That's a good first step. But the next thing that you have to do is you need to bring value to that group. You can't just exist there. If everyone in the group is just standing around waiting for other people to get do the work that's necessary to keep the group going and to help other members, there's nothing that happens there. But when everyone has the mindset of, I need to bring value here, I need to make sure that I'm carrying my weight, I'm helping other people when they need help, because they're going to turn around and help you when you need help. And that whole concept of group value, I think, is something that you can build in your life. That's one of the structures you can build in your life that will produce a regular flow of happiness potentially for the rest of your life.
I think you just blew my mind as far as it, and it's not because I don't understand group dynamics, and it's not because I tell people all the time, if you're the smartest person in your group, then you're in the wrong group. But what I haven't been teaching and I haven't been communicating well is that value piece. And sometimes I think I know that's important, but I haven't articulated in a way that you just did, where you're like, wait a minute, no, if I show up to whatever group, I want to bring value because that's just my personality and who I am. But if I'm intentional about it, right? If I'm intentional going, this is my group and I need to bring value to it. But then when I create a group, like let's say I have a group that I did my coaching with, and now we're doing a group coaching session. And I tell everybody that's in the group, wait a minute, your job in this group is not just to suck out all of our energy to get what you need out of it. Your job in this group is to give just as much as you're pulling out, and then see where that group goes, and to see what that group can do, because we're better together, right? We're always better together than we can ever be by ourselves. But if we can be intentional, oh my gosh, I can't wait to go try this.
Yeah, it's huge. It's a game changer. The synergistic effects of a group of people that are all trying to help each other out and help the group at large. It's amazing. I mean, I belong to a BNI chapter, Business Networkers International. That's one of the ways. So that's another great thing if your members are not aware of that, but it's a great way to build your business. And I've been in my group for 13 years, and I've gotten tremendous referrals and build relationships and all types of stuff. But we have a saying in BNI, and it's a giver's gain. So it's baked into the ethos of BNI and our chapter specifically, like you have to contribute to the chapter if you want to be successful. First of all, any group you belong to, it requires work and intention to keep it going, because people are naturally going to move on because they retire, they move, something changes in their life. And if we don't continue to bring in new people, we're not going to have a group to come to, if we're not taking care of our new members, if we're not mentoring people, if we're not helping with all the needs that are involved with keeping this thing going, it's not going to be a thing anymore. So my participation in BNI definitely crystallized this particular variable of the 7 of like, yeah, you have to bring value to your group. Now, when I did that whole thing with my mom, bringing value was not on my mind.
Yeah,
it was just a byproduct of what I felt was really necessary at the time. But in retrospect, analyzing it, I was like, man, not only did I help my mom, I helped my brothers and sisters, because in some of these stories, I don't even, because I was in college, so I kind of had moved on with my life. But my brother, not too long ago, he was telling me about the state of the house that we were in at the time. And at the time that money came through to buy the house, it was like perfect timing, because that situation wasn't really like a stable situation. So, and I didn't even know that. So yeah, it's sometimes these things that happen there are levels of depth to it. And yeah.
Well, even when I think of like the law of sowing and reaping, right? And you think of, if I can sow into somebody else, I get a tenfold return. And I'm thinking about your story where, you paid for college, you're still in college, and, you're going out and you're serving your family, where you could have been thinking about, well, maybe I need a automobile to get around when I go to school, or maybe I need to put some money into savings so that when I start my life, I'll be ready to go. Or maybe because you're sacrificing, your time, because you're trading that time for energy. And it kind of just goes to me when I think about like, how a garden works, where there's seeds and you plant those seeds and they continue to germinate and they grow. Whereas, and I'm using this analogy because I just heard it recently, like in a bakery, if you go make a pie and you eat a piece of pie, then there's one less piece of pie. And there's always this belief that there's not going to be enough. And I can see your family going, okay, we're in this situation where if something doesn't happen, we're going to all have less. And then you come in and you say, okay, I'm gonna do what I can for my family. One, I got to motivate myself to even get out here and knock on anybody's door, because I really don't want to be here. But the other side of it is now you said, okay, I'm going to work. You give to the family. You get 100-fold return, through the rest of your life, and your family gets taken care of in a garden situation instead of lack situation. Wow.
And even beyond that, and I'm just kind of coming to me now as we're having this conversation. So my brother, who told me about kind of the situation that was going on, he's clearly my younger brother. He has gone on to be extremely successful in life, like very financially successful in life. And when I was starting my business, my insurance business, I needed money to start my business. Mm-hmm. I needed a loan. I couldn't go out to traditional sources to get that. So my brother, who I helped, quote unquote, helped out during a time when he wasn't really in a position to help himself because he was still a child at that point. Years later, he turns around and he helps me out. so that way I can start my business. And without him, it would have been very challenging to impossible. So I never meant it. I mean, I do believe in tithing and I do believe in planting seeds and all that. But a lot of times, like in retrospect, it's like, man, I planted that seed and it came back, many times, manyfold to me. So it's definitely a concept that I've seen work in my life. And as I analyze my life more, like I see other times that it happened.
Yeah. But one example, we don't think about how the actions that we take not only affect us, but affect others. And probably in your happiness equation, and I'm going to assume that it has some, part of that is, that equation where you can't see the impact that you make. I mean, it could be that you don't bring that and you don't do it. Your mom and your brother doesn't become as successful because he doesn't see the act that you have. I mean, we'll never know. It's kind of like that saying that any fool can count the amount of apples on a tree, but only God can count the amount of seeds in an apple or the amount of trees in an apple. And so it's that thing. And so talk to us a little bit more about your happiness equation. I think I stumbled on one and made you dive deep on it. But what's your favorite one?
Sure. So I'll just kind of do a quick overview about how the origin story and then about it. So it started out as a conversation with my kids. I was like, hey guys, let's see if we can come up with an equation for happiness. So we're having this conversation. I'm moderating it. They're throwing out ideas. I'm throwing out ideas. And at the end of it, I look at what we have and it's like, man, I think there's something here. Like this kind of makes sense. It was a very rudimentary version of it, but I felt there was something there. Now at the time I was the educational coordinator of my BNI chapter. So we were responsible for bringing an educational topic every week to give to the members. So I decided to take that, happiness, the original rudimentary version of your happiness equation and present it to my group. And what I told them to begin with, because I'm a salesman, so you got to grab their attention. I said, today, guys, we're going to talk about the most important equation in the history of humanity. That's what I told them. So I immediately grabbed all their attention there, and I've been in that position many times. So I'll say these crazy things and I'll kind of deliver to some degree. So then I lay out the happiness equation, and it's debatable if this is, I guess my point with that is like, what does it matter if you unlock the secrets of the universe if you are unhappy? Like, if you can facilitate happiness and become a happier person, all these other things kind of open up. But after that presentation to my BNI chapter, I got a response like I had never gotten before, and I've been educational coordinator many times. I probably got 40 emails, texts, people coming up to me, talking to me about how impactful it was and opening up to me. And it was very overwhelming. So at that point, I knew I had to I felt I needed to do something with this. So 3.5 years later, the book has been written and I've been on a book tour. It's been kind of a crazy, wild ride. And the book is launching on February 4th, almost about a month from now. So the layout of the book is basically this equation that I created. And there's 7 questions that you ask, and we'll just go through the questions real quick. The first one is, are your basic human needs being met? That's a yes or no question. Second one is, do you belong to any groups that meet regularly and are meaningful to you? The third one we already talked about, which is on an A+ to F scale, how do you rate the value that you bring to those groups? Then on an A+ to F scale, how would you rate your gratitude? That's the fourth question. The fifth one is, when a meaningful situation does not go as expected, negative impact on your emotions lasts a short time, moderate time, or long time. The fifth one is, do you believe your life has a purpose? I'm sorry, that's the sixth one. And then the last one is, on an A+ to F scale, how would you rate your progress to achieving your purpose in life? And that's the equation.
Okay. And the last one is an A to C, A to F. Question on the last one?
The last one is on an A+ to F scale, which is, how would you rate your progress to achieving your purpose in life?
Gotcha. Okay. And then how do you calculate it or score it, or what's the?
Okay, so the actual equation is kind of geeky, and there's exponents and numerators, denominators, those kinds of things, and it is in the book. But your listeners can, for free, there's no obligation, no credit card, no email address needed. You can go to our website and you can answer the questions, and it'll give you your score. And the website is yourhappinesseq.com.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Can't wait to go and do it. I can't, and I start thinking of, I could tell just by talking to you, you're one of those math folks that love numbers and loves the equation, but just to figure that out. I get what, as I'm going through it and thinking of my own happiness, and that's what you do, right? When you hear somebody tell you something, you figure out how it works on you first. Sure. I start thinking of how does this affect people's lives once you find that out. Now, so if you realize and you take your score in your quiz and you realize, oh, I'm not even close to happy. Are there things that now I can begin to do to move the needle on those things? Or I find out I'm so happy, but I get to that last one, but I'm not achieving the things that I wanted to be on here. Do I just say, well, this is enough because I'm happy? How do we take this information and then make it so it moves us forward?
Sure. So kind of two questions there. I'll touch on both of them. So the idea with the equation is, first of all, it's kind of a Trojan horse. To develop a book on happiness, I think a lot of people may see it, hear about it, and just keep on moving. But the nature of answering questions and getting a score, I feel, is going to open up this content to people who would otherwise maybe pass it over. And those people may be impacted in a way that potentially changes their life forever. So while there is a score and there is an equation, I do tell people to not get hung up on their score. Your score is just a number. The more important thing is how the variables that are in the equation, how they show up in your life. So a great way to use the your happiness equation is to go ahead and just get your baseline score. Answer the questions right now just to see kind of where you're at. And a great next step is to look at what your answers were and see if there's anything that jumps out at you as something that you can change, that you think is possible to improve on. And that would be the very first place to go. And the first thing to work on is, you don't want to overwhelm yourself. I mean, there are some people in great situations, and there are some people in some really, really tough, difficult situations. And your score, maybe you had a lot of them that you felt you could, that were not good. And my advice is pick one of the variables that you can work on and improve, and then work on and improve it. I have resources in my book, but there are resources everywhere. If you need to improve on your gratitude, there's resources everywhere to find ways to do that. If you're not in a meaningful group, there are groups all over the country in your town that you could connect with, and people that you can start to do life together. If you don't know what your purpose is, there's a lot of different ways and people that you can talk to help you figure that out. So, going through that, the process of taking the quiz and getting your score, the main idea to get from that is identifying one area that you can focus on, that you can work on and improving. And so I guess that would be the first question. The second thing that you mentioned is, let's say someone takes it and they are like, wow, I got a 98. And they were on, let's say the person was honest. They got a 98, which is a great score. And that doesn't mean that this information doesn't apply to you. I know for myself, I have always been a very happy person. I read a book called Happiness is a Serious Problem, and that book changed my life. I had no idea that in a couple of months, actually, it was a couple of years. I was going to go through one of the darkest moments of my life, which was when I got divorced and just really went through. It was my second year in business of the insurance agency that I have now. So it was just a fledgling company, went through a divorce, went from 100% access to my kids to 50%. It was just one of the darkest moments in my life. But that book that I read, one of the things that they talk about is that you have a moral obligation to be happy. So you can't infect innocent bystanders with your sadness. So while I was going through that time, I did have people that I could talk to and just really just unload and kind of get things off my chest and be completely honest and negative if negativity was warranted in that time. But everybody else in my life, I spared from it. A lot of people, when I had come out on the other side, they had no idea what I had gone through. So to the people who are happy, maybe naturally happy, which I considered myself that, is you have been given a gift and you need to protect it. You need to be aware that it is a gift and you need to be aware that it's something that you need to protect. And I think this book and other resources out there will give you some of the tools necessary, first of all, to be aware of it. And then second of all, to be intentional on protecting it.
Wow. Yeah, while you're talking, I took it. I ended up 95, scored 95. Oh, so I think that's pretty good. But then I started thinking, as I'm listening to you and you're giving me these great resources like, happiness is, what'd you say? Happiness. Yeah. I think about our culture, and it's hard for me to take away that, there are struggling Black men that, for whatever reasons, whether it's the trauma growing up, whether it's the inability to get jobs, whether it's the way people have treated them, access to things, whatever those are. And I start thinking, how is it that I can end up at this happy scale, or you end up at this happy scale, why we're doing it, and what are some of the things that we may be doing or that we can change? Because I look at it as, okay, this is where you're at. That doesn't mean this is where you have to end up. So I see that you're talking about these things and you're giving us, I'm going to tell every person who does this to take this quiz and this test and, get your book. And I'm like, well, what can we do as folks that are, like you said, that we're protecting it or that we're happy to be around other folks who aren't and not want to run? Right? Because I do that. I tend to, right? I want to protect it. And you're just really depressing me right now. So I got to get away from you. What do we do here in this situation?
Well, that's tough. I mean, I think a layman on the street going through the world, I think you do got to protect your happiness. So if you feel led to, be in the presence or help someone through a difficult time who's like unrelated to you and you have really nothing invested, more power to you on that. But I'm not necessarily recommending that for anyone. Now, that's a little different if it's, someone in your family, in a group you belong to. Now you probably have more of an obligation to do what you can to help a person through that. But that is also where group belonging comes into play. Like if everything is well in your world right now, but you're not really connected to people, this is the time to do it, because the nature of life is tragedy, unfortunately, is always around the corner. We have a mortal body. The people we love have mortal bodies. We live in a pretty tumultuous time in the world. There have been crazier times, but this time is not without its uncertainties. Like, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. So building these structures in your life are going to give you the opportunity to have the people to help you get through things and put you in a position so that you can help them, get through things. If someone, is maybe going through a tough time and they don't necessarily have anyone, I would say their first order of priority would be to try and find someone who is open to helping them. That could be a professional. It could be an organization that specializes in helping people in a similar situation. There are all types of groups out there. But I think, like with happiness, people think that it's just something that happens to them. They're just going through life and happiness is just bestowed on them. If you hear my story, I kind of know a little bit of your story, and I know a lot of other successful, happy people. They put a lot of hard work. They did a lot of hard things to get the byproduct of happiness that those really hard things, um, produced. So it might be really hard to go out there and find someone to help you, but that is your first priority. Find a church, find an organization, find a group, find someone who like actively work to try and improve your situation, because you're going to look back on that at some point. Because I know many people have. I mean, I have. You look back on it and like, man, me getting help, me reaching out, that helped me to get over that hurdle in life, and now I can like start to look at these other things and other opportunities.
When I think about, and you've done such a really good job of codifying what it means to be part of a group and be in a group, and we say we are who the 4 or 5 people that we hang around with all the time is who we become and are part of. For me, if I'm not I watch this and I'm going, well, I take this test and I get a lower score, and I'm like, I'm really struggling. If I associate myself with groups of happy people in my mind, because I go to the extreme, right? I'm gonna make my group all take the test, and if you're not over a 90, then you don't need to be in this group, and then I find who's less that can be in the group, right? But if I'm trying to improve my own, can that rub off on me? Can it be something that because I'm associating with people who are, that I just by that energy that's around, begin to process this, or is something I really have to dig in and say, no, wait, it's like personal development. I have to work on this. And I might have to work on it, if it's something that's, innate to me, I might have to work on it over and over for the rest of my life. But it's going to be worth working on, I guess, because being happy, I guess, is important.
Being happy is important. Being happy involves work. I think those two things are kind of very much related. If you are around people who are, we're using happiness in this conversation, but there can be a correlate to success. Now, being financially successful and being happy is not necessarily the same thing.
Oh yeah, no, those two are congruent.
Yeah. But if your goal is to be happier and you're around happy people, if you present yourself the right way in this group, in terms of you being open and you being willing to learn and to gather from these people, I think naturally you're going to want to take the steps, do the work to become happier like them. I think the same thing could also be true of those who are looking to become more financially successful. And I think at the same time, if you are in a group and you have the wrong attitude or you have bad intentions or something like that, you can end up bringing the whole group down. So I think you got to be really careful about how you show up, what your motivations are. Are you really willing to work? Are you really willing to be an asset and a credit to the group? And I think if you are, it may be hard. It may not be something that comes naturally to you, but if you're going to really try, I do a lot of things. I do jujitsu, and there are people who start out and they're not good at all. Like they're really, really bad, but I can tell they are really trying. They're trying their best. And I love working with people like that. It's, if you're going to try, I'm going to be there to help you. At the same time, we have people that come in, and I'm no master in jujitsu. I'm like a purple belt. So it's like 2 steps above like the beginner belt. But we have people who come in who they may have done some other sport in their life, and they're just know-it-alls. You can't tell them anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, man, those people are a huge drain. Like they need to really kind of check themselves, and I'll do the best I can. But at the end of the day, there's only really so much you can do. So that's something to be aware of in terms of like you having the right attitude and you being open if you're trying to improve and you're putting yourself around people who are where you want to be. You don't want to drag them down. You want to be open so that they can, help lift you up.
Wow, that's so good. And I love it is how part of it is. And I think, you said happiness isn't what happiness isn't created because you have money. I'm going to be happy whether I have money or I'm not going to have money. That's the decision in how you do it. I can say because I have more money, I am more happier, or happier has allowed me and the reason I say it is because it allows me to serve in a different way. And so if I'm serving and I know that's what makes me happy, it's a lot easier to serve with means than it is when you're trying to create means. And I've been in both places, right, where it's really hard to serve. You still try to do it. But if you don't have anything and you're trying to go out there and do stuff, you're in survival mode, you're doing it. And so the money itself has nothing to do with happiness. It's just the options that you get or being happy or being in a sport or doing things for other people. It's just, but that feeling that you get, the endorphins and the dopamine and everything else that happens as a result of being happy. And I don't think there's a person listening to this can say, well, I was less, happy didn't make me feel better. It made me feel worse. I don't know if that's possible to be able to do.
I would say probably not. No.
Yeah. I directed this conversation in the way that served me, and I don't know if that's fair to say, okay, this is what Brian wants, because Brian wants to continue to be happy, and I'm so interested. And so I don't want to shortchange folks that are listening with anything that you have that you would say, hey, I wanted to talk about this today. I wanted to make sure we got into this. I want our listeners to know more about this. So I want to give you that opportunity to kind of share what you found, in having these conversations, because I know your whole life isn't about your happiness equation. I mean, it's just a little part of what you're doing right now. And I kind of just stole it because I was so interested in it. But go ahead and share with us some of the other things that I think you believe would be beneficial to us.
Yeah. So one of the things, which is probably one of the heavier, bigger concepts in the book, is like your purpose in life, which I know a lot of people kind of, man, where do I even begin with that? Because of the nature of my growing up, I've always felt I knew what my purpose in life, and it has always resonated with me, and it does to this day. It's what I feel is my purpose is just to be a good husband and a good father. It's really simple, but it resonates with me. So in the book, I kind of talk about different ways to kind of like find out what your purpose is and so on. But I had a pastor one time who talked about what he felt the meaning of life is, which I get into in the book, and because it was very impactful to me, and I think people should hear it. So what he said was, and this was based on the creation story, and I know some of your listeners may believe in the Bible or not believe in the Bible or anything in between. But in the creation story, before Adam sinned, God told him to keep the garden. So the implication of that is, if he didn't keep the garden, there would come a form of chaos that could be overgrown trees, fruit spoiling on the ground. Like, beautiful gardens don't just happen. They happen because someone takes care of them. So what he said, and I believe, is the meaning of life is bringing order to chaos. Mm-hmm. So if you are looking for the meaning of life or your purpose for being on this planet, a great place to look is, what in my world, in my community, in my family is in disorder that I can help bring order to? What's in chaos that I can help bring order to? And I think if you think of that, for a lot of people, it's going to give them like a spark of like, man, I really don't like the way that this happens in my community or my family, and I want to do something about that. And that may send you down a path where your reason for being here is revealed to you. And that may be affiliated to how you make money. it may not be affiliated. Maybe it's a completely separate thing that you do on the side or a different project that you work on. But I think that is very, very important, is look around the world and find something that's in a chaotic state, and that you feel that you have an affinity and you have an aptitude to doing something about, and then go out and do something about it. So I would want to, have your listeners know that. In terms of the book and how you can find us, again, the website that we have is yourhappinesseq.com. You can go there and get your free happiness score. Again, no cost obligation, credit card, anything like that. Just get your score, and hopefully that kind of gets your wheels turning of how you may be able to optimize some of that. And then you can also pre-order the book. We are in the pre-sale phase of the project right now. This has been going on for years at this point, but we're about 1 month from the launch of the book. So it's a pretty exciting time. And if you like anything, you think it can help, I would love your support. If you know someone in your life who would benefit from it, would love, any support you can have, send it as gifts. I think it's really something that can be impactful for people. So, and then on social media, if you want to see some of our street interviews and some of the interesting content that, we're putting out, the best way to connect with us on social media is on Instagram. And the handle is @yourhappinesseq. And you can see all our stuff. You can also links in the bio to pre-order the book and so on.
Wow. Leighton, thank you so much for sharing with us today. Yeah, I got today. Usually I have my book out here that has my graph paper, and so I said I'll just take notes, in my book. But today I got sticky notes.
All right.
So it's just been so good, and I think first you say, okay, what value am I bringing to my group that I'm going there, and then you saying whatever's in disorder, that now I have the ability to create order. And I think of the law of entropy that says that if you leave stuff alone, it automatically goes towards disorder. It goes towards, not being good. You leave your car outside, it gets dust on it. You leave it too long, the tires rot. No matter what it is, it just falls into disorder if you are not doing something. And so I hope by listening to this today that you are encouraged, not only that you can receive by getting the book and learning the concepts and taking your score and being happy, but you almost have an obligation to do it, that you need to go out and be there for other people so that they can achieve and grow and understand the same thing. And I think, like I said, you blew my brain earlier, and it has been such a great time spending with you. And so please go to his website, Your Happiness EQ on the social media. And, hopefully you'll come back. We can talk again, and we can, after your book launches and it's doing well, and, you're this real famous person that I can
I'd love to, man. You live to God's ears, man.
I love it, and be able to come out and really just talk some more. And you're doing a phenomenal thing for the world, and I appreciate you doing it. And so for those, again, that you are watching, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the, what's that other one, so that you can get notifications. And as I tell you, every single one of these episodes probably has something in it that you can benefit from. But I'm okay if you just pick and choose a few, and your life changes because you're watching what other folks have done and what they're able to do. Especially, this is an important one. If you're struggling with happiness, listen to it 2 or 3 times. Get the book. Do the things that you need to do, and don't forget you are God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. And my friend, I hope you have a wonderful, just incredible day, and we'll look forward to talking to you on the next one. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.